We have commuted the sentence of Rod Blagojevich. He served 8 years in jail.
He didn't have to do this. But President Trump is not a typical politician.
Yes, I just pardoned Bernie Kerik.
Trump didn't stop there. He also pardoned the former owner of the San Francisco 49ers, Eddie DeBartolo, and Michael Milken, the 1980s investment banker known as the junk bonds king.
These are all people that you have to see the recommendations. I rely on recommendations.
So President Trump granted a slew of pardons this week, and my next guest says she deserves one as well. Stephani Moore, she was a young police officer in 1995. She was responding to a breaking and entering call. When the suspect tried to run, she commanded her canine to bite and hold. The man was arrested and got stitches for the bite wounds on his legs, but a jury found that Moore's use of the police dog was excessive force and violated the suspect's civil rights. She was sentenced and served nearly 10 years in prison. She did serve her time, but she says the conviction still haunts her. Stephani Moore joins me now from Washington. Stephani, I don't think a lot of people knew about your story. And when they heard it, frankly, just shocked that you got that kind of time. If you could plead your case to the president, what would you say?
Oh, if I could plead my case to President Trump, I would say that I have a case you should be very interested in examining and looking at. I have a case where the Department of Justice may have overstepped their bounds, was a bit overzealous in their prosecution. I have a sentence that was extremely unjust and very harsh, and I would implore him to take a look at my case and rectify the situation.
Yeah, so many years later, and the attorneys actually for you made a similar argument. They call this an unreasonable sentence. Take a listen.
We believe very firmly that she was wrongfully convicted, that she was charged to pursue a political end that the Justice Department at the time needed to pursue against Prince George's County, and she became a scapegoat.
Separate from all those feelings, this has continued to be a black cloud over your life. Tell us how.
Well, I have a felony conviction that I carry with me everywhere I go now. It invades my life both personally and professionally. I served my entire 10-year sentence. I maintained my innocence throughout the whole process. I testified on my own behalf. I went through not just one, but 2 trials. In my first trial, I was acquitted of one charge by a jury and hung 11-1 in favor of acquittal of the remaining charge. And in an unheard of movement or action, the Department of Justice elected to retry me. My training officer, who was also charged alongside me, he ended up being acquitted. I was the only one convicted. My felony conviction follows me in my personal and professional life. Shortly after my release, my stepdaughter was going on her senior class trip to Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, and I was going to accompany her father on that trip. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip for our family, and I was not able to go because Australia would not issue me a visa because of my felony conviction. In my professional life, I have missed out on promotions and advancements in positions I was competing for because of my felony conviction. I can't vote in federal elections. I feel very much like a disenfranchised citizen in that regard. I would love to have the opportunity to vote and make a difference. When my sentence ended, the impact that the conviction had on my life and my family's life, it didn't end there.
Speaking of your family, your son was just 2 years old when you went to prison. I can't even imagine that. One thing you won't get back, even with a pardon, is that time with your child.
Most definitely. He was 2 years old when I was convicted, 3 years old when I went to prison. I missed every one of his firsts. I missed him losing his first tooth. I missed his first day of school. I missed school assemblies and sporting events and birthdays. And I can never get that time back. I was very fortunate that I had a very supportive family, friends, and support system where I was able to maintain my connection with my son. But so much of my life was stolen from me.
Yes, Stephani, the other thing that really strikes me about this is that your plea to President Trump really depends on whether he hears it. Do you think he knows your story?
If he doesn't, I appreciate this opportunity right now to be on with you and to be able to try to reach him, and I implore all my friends and my family or anyone who might have a connection to President Trump to mention my case. It would just be a nice ending to a long and difficult saga for me.
Stephani Moore, thank you for being on and sharing this story. We are hopeful that it is heard. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.